Hello all, so a quick revision video, just dual coding and laying out for you the homesteaders. So the key thing to remember about the homesteaders really is thinking about how the government really changed their minds. They changed their policy, changed their thoughts on this big section of land we call the Great Plains, named as such by the Native Americans. The whites initially saw it and described it as a great American desert that was impossible to farm or settle in. However, they later then changed their minds. They decided, actually, we've got the technology now. We now want to settle on it. We want to transform it with our manifest destiny into, God's good land. God has told us that we should spread and settle there and claim it as our own and push the Indians out, push the Indian way of life out. So the US government really established this policy in wanting to develop and settle over the Great Plains. So they made two new territories in 1854, Kansas and Nebraska, and really just destroyed that concept, that idea of a permanent Indian frontier. So in 1862, Abraham Lincoln, the president, signed a Homestead Act. So this encouraged families to settle in the West, and it gave each family 160 acres, i.e. a homestead, of land to farm, basically for free, really. If they made it a success, they might have to pay $30 for it, but basically for free, really. So by that's a typo. 1876, over 6 million acres of land had become homesteads, and it encouraged much more European migration. So not only just American people that lived in the east of America, but more people are coming from Ireland, coming from Russia to settle in America. It also led to further acts like the Timber Culture Act, the Desert Land Act, and that brought further migration west. And also it linked up with the completion of the railroads. So once it's easier and quicker to move west, that is bringing further settlers to the west, wanting to farm and establish their own homesteads. So that's just a bit of background really to the homesteaders and the change in policy behind it. Okay. So initially then, once the homesteaders had moved there, they faced some pretty difficult problems. Okay, they've got their 160 acres of land, but they soon found that it was very, very dry. Okay, remember it had initially been called the Great American Desert. Very little water, so that makes it difficult to, A, to drink water to stay alive, B, to wash and keep clean, and C, to grow crops, therefore so you can produce your own food. So very, very difficult situation. There was also a lot of natural disasters, such as what's here in the picture with fires. Okay, so you see those breaking out, storms, tornadoes. We also see grasshoppers, locusts, other animals attacking like wolves. Okay, and killing livestock or even attacking the homesteaders. So very, very difficult natural environment to live in. Equally, the soil is very, very poor. It's very dense, very compact with weeds. So it's difficult to get a plough into, to break the soil up and to essentially plant seeds in. If it's really tightly compacted, it's going to be difficult to do that. They were also actually really, really lonely as well. You have to think, if each family has got 160 acres, their neighbours are going to be really far away. So the isolation and the loneliness was very, very difficult. Apparently the sound of the wind alone used to send people into madness. So equally they would be pretty far away from the nearest doctor, the nearest hospital. There were a lot of diseases in the homes because it's difficult to keep clean as well. So we see a lot of illnesses, particularly with young children. They did try to develop their own solutions to that problem. So famously, if you had earache, they would try warm urine in the ear to help sort that. But as you can imagine, that's not that successful. And particularly women in childbirth had a very difficult time of it. So with all that combined, what we actually see is many homesteaders in those first few years going broke, simply going bankrupt. The final problem they've got is there was some corrupt government agents, really, that didn't give the right amount of land to the right homesteaders. Some of them even kept large amounts of land for themselves. So there was corruption in even getting the land as well. Okay, so with all those problems that they faced, it's a wonder that any survived. But actually, they were very ingenious and developed their own solutions. Primarily, they discovered the use of sod bricks. So they used these sod bricks to make their own sod houses. Okay, so these earthen bricks. And they found that they were able to keep cool in summer and warm in winter in these sod bricks houses, sod houses. They also discovered that, a bit like the Indians did, if you dried out buffalo dung, you could turn it into buffalo chips and use it for fuel to try and keep warm in winter. And they also discovered that there is water very, very deep into the earth, so you can build your own well and dig further down into the earth to access clean drinking water. And finally, we've got John Deere's ploughs, so they're able to use those heavy ploughs to get through the earth and attempt to plant your crops and develop. So those are some early solutions to their problems, really, that they were able to develop. In terms of the long-term solutions, with a question mark, really the breakthrough to that comes with the completion of the railroads. So as the railroads are completed, east to west in 1869, that's bringing more and more people over. They're able to build and develop relationships with the other people, the other migrants that are coming. So build schools because teachers might be coming. Get relationships with closer neighbours, maybe set up barn dances so they can have some fun. So really it's the trains that bring more people over that helps that. The trains also bring new technology that helps the homesteaders. So barbed wire from Joseph Glidden to enclose their land, so to keep some of the wild animals out and their own livestock in. So barbed wire helps the homesteaders develop their farming immensely. It also brings the technology of the wind pump, so they're able to use the power of the wind to get further into the earth to access more fresher drinking water. Finally, they also establish this technique of dry farming. So if you put material on top of the crops and around it, that helps keep the moisture in. Okay, so they're able to develop dry farming techniques. They also discover a type of wheat from Russia called Turkey red wheat. It's a bit more hardy. It's used to growing in the similar conditions in kind of the Siberia parts of Russia, so they're able to get that over on the trains. And also in 1874, homesteaders are given further amounts of land. If they plant trees under the Timber Culture Act, they're given many more acres of land, so they're able to get further amounts of land, so they've got more chances to grow. That being said, life as a homesteader is still pretty tough. You've still got the chance of grasshoppers eating all your crops, or facing difficulty with hot summers and cold winters. By 1893, over 11,000 homesteaders had in fact gone bankrupt, so it was very difficult in the long term, a difficult way of life for homesteaders to manage. So that's a summary there. So you might just want to turn over your sheet over, see if you can write some of this out from memory, but then also try thinking about putting some of this knowledge into practice. So on your American West paper, you'll see 3 types of questions. Question 1, you have to explain 2 consequences. So let's imagine you got this question. Explain 2 consequences of the Homestead Act. So you might want to draft that out. Question 2 is always going to ask you to write an account which explains. So let's think, what if you got this question? Write an account which explains how the homesteaders solved some of their problems with farming in the years 1862 to 76. So could you bullet point plan that out now. How would you approach that question with that chronological technique that we know you need for question 2? And then finally, question 3 always is going to ask you to explain the importance of something. So let's imagine you got this question. Explain the importance of the invention of barbed wire in the West. Could you explain the importance of barbed wire for the homesteaders? How would you link it to further development and success for the homesteaders? And what else would you talk about? What else did barbed wire affect and impact? Okay, so I hope that video has been helpful today. Do let me know if I've forgotten anything or missed anything you think it's important to cover, or if you've got any questions about that.